This is Nauru. In 1970, it was a very rich country because of something surprising: poop. Seriously. But just 10 years later, everything changed, and Nauru became one of the poorest countries. Wondering how that happened? Let's find out together. Nauru is a tiny island country in the Pacific Ocean. It's really small, only about 21 square kilometers. But here's something fascinating. The island was actually made by bird poop. A long time ago, it was just a coral reef, and birds pooped on it, helping it grow into an island. A British ship found it first in 1798. Then, in 1888, Germany said it belonged to them as part of their empire. So, remember how I said the island was made by bird poop? Well, that poop is rich in something called phosphate. Phosphate is super important for farming and making stuff like fertilizer, animal food, soap, and bombs. Nauru had a lot of it, the best in the world. But the Germans were taking it away with the help of a British company. Nauru didn't like that, so they wanted to be free from being controlled by others. During World War I and II, Australia and Japan fought over the island, and it caused a lot of pain and trouble for the people living there. In 1967, Nauru took over the British company that was mining its phosphate and started its own company, the Nauru Phosphate Corporation, NPC. This meant Nauru could control its own resources and make a lot of money. Then in 1968, Nauru became independent and became the smallest republic in the world. It also became the richest country per person. At its best time, each person in Nauru had over $50,000. That's more than any other country at the time. Nauru sold its phosphate to places like Australia, Japan, and New Zealand and made millions of dollars. Nauru had a lot of money, so they made life super easy for their 10,000 citizens. Everything was free: school, doctors, houses, electricity, water, and even flights. People could travel the world and buy whatever they wanted. They got fancy cars, clothes, food, and gadgets. They built fancy stuff like hotels, casinos, golf courses, and malls. They even donated money to other countries like Fiji, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. But there was a big problem, a really big one. Phosphate mining was wrecking Nauru's land. To get the phosphate, they had to dig up the ground and trees, leaving behind big holes and piles of rubble. By the 1980s, 80% of Nauru was ruined by mining, with only a little green area left by the sea. This caused serious problems. Without trees and soil, the island was easily damaged by things like erosion, droughts, and floods. The dust and noise from mining made the air and water dirty, making people sick. But, most importantly, they were running out of phosphate to sell. By the 1990s, Nauru's phosphate production had declined dramatically, and so had its income. To make matters worse, Nauru's foreign investments turned out to be disastrous. Many of them were fraudulent, mismanaged, or lost in lawsuits. Nauru's assets were frozen, seized, or sold off at a loss. Nauru also got involved in various international scandals, such as money laundering, tax evasion, and passport sales. Nauru was broke. Nauru's fall happened really fast and was really steep. By the 2000s, it was one of the poorest and loneliest countries ever. It had no more stuff from nature, no other businesses to count on, no land to grow food, no fresh water. They had to buy everything from outside, but they didn't have money. They had to borrow money from other countries, but they couldn't pay it back. They had to rely on help from other countries and make deals that caused arguments. One of these deals was with Australia. In 2001, Australia offered Nauru a deal. In exchange for millions of dollars in aid, Nauru would agree to host a detention center for asylum seekers who tried to reach Australia by boat. Nauru accepted the deal and became a prison island for hundreds of refugees, many of whom were from war-torn countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. People got mad about this deal. They said Australia was breaking the rules and Nauru was giving up its freedom. This deal also hurt Nauru's society and way of life. Nauru felt stuck. Currently, Nauru is struggling with money and problems like not having enough jobs for its 13,000 people. Many folks there eat unhealthy food, get sick a lot, and most adults are overweight or smoke. It's a tough situation, with Nauru having the highest rates of overweight people and smokers globally. Nauru is a lost country. Nauru is a tragic example of how a country can go from being the world's richest to one of the world's poorest. It is a cautionary tale of how a country can squander its natural resources, ruin its environment, and waste its wealth. It is a warning to other countries, especially those that depend on finite,